She ran to the house. She gathered clean cloths, a bottle of whiskey, a needle and thread, and the box of herbs she had brought from her mother's garden. She ran back to the barn, her bare feet slipping on the frost-covered ground, her heart pounding in her chest. Silas had not moved. His eyes were closed again, his breathing shallow. The horse had quieted, as if it understood that the danger had passed. Margaret went to work. She cut away his shirt with a knife from the tack room. The wound on his chest was deep, a gash from the horse's hoof, but it was not the worst of his injuries. His leg was the worst. The bone was broken, the skin torn, the blood flowing freely. She poured whiskey over the wound, biting her lip as Silas screamed and thrashed. She set the bone as best she could, her hands steady, her jaw clenched, her eyes fixed on the task. She wrapped the leg in splints made from broken barrel staves, tying the bandages tight with strips of cloth. She stitched the gash on his chest, her stitches small and even, the same way she had stitched torn dresses and ripped curtains. It took her 3 hours. 3 hours of blood and sweat and desperate prayer. When she was finished, she sat back on her heels, her hands covered in red, her body shaking with exhaustion. Silas was unconscious, his face white, his breathing shallow but steady. He was alive. He was alive because of her. She did not leave his side. She built a fire in the corner of the barn, using hay and broken boards, and she wrapped him in blankets and held him through the night. She talked to him, her voice low and soothing, telling him stories about her mother, about the garden, about the dreams she had given up. She did not know if he could hear her. She did not care. She needed to fill the silence with something other than the sound of her own fear. Dawn came, pale and gray, and Silas opened his eyes. He looked at her. Really looked at her, for the first time since the altar. He saw her blood-stained hands, her torn robe, her face streaked with tears and dirt. He saw the fire she had built, the splints on his leg, the neat row of stitches on his chest. And he understood. This woman, this bride he had married for land and treated with indifference, had saved his life. "You," he whispered. "You did this." Margaret nodded. She was too tired to speak. Silas reached up and touched her face. His fingers were weak, trembling, but they were warm. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you not run? Why did you not leave me to die?" Margaret leaned into his touch. She closed her eyes and the tears she had been holding back finally fell. "Because you are my husband," she said. "Because I made a vow. Because I am not the kind of woman who runs when things get hard. Because I love you, Silas, even though you did not want me, even though you married me for land, even though you have given me nothing but silence and distance. I love you, and I could not let you die." Silas stared at her. His dark eyes, those flat, unreadable eyes filled with tears. He had not cried since he was a boy, since the day his mother had died and left him alone with a father who did not know how to love. But he cried now. He cried for the years of loneliness, the years of fighting, the years of building walls so high that no one had ever bothered to climb them. And he cried for this woman, this quiet, stubborn woman who had climbed them anyway. "I did not want you," he said, his voice breaking. "That was true. I married you for the land, for the deal, for the end of the feud. But that was before I saw you kneel in the dirt to plant your garden, before I saw you leave the lamp burning in the window, before I saw you stitch my chest closed with the hands of a surgeon and the heart of an angel. I was wrong, Margaret. I was so wrong." Margaret shook her head. "You were not wrong. You were afraid. Just like me. Just like everyone." Silas pulled her down gently so that her head rested on his chest, just below the stitches. He wrapped his arms around her, his injured legs screaming in protest, and he held her. "I am not afraid anymore," he whispered into her hair. "I am not afraid of you. I am not afraid of love. I am not afraid of the future. Because you are in it. And as long as you are in it, I can face anything." Margaret lifted her head. She looked into his eyes, and she saw something she had never seen before. She saw herself. Not as a bargaining chip, not as a burden, not as a wife he had settled for. She saw herself as his partner, his ally, his home. "Then let us face it together," she said. The weeks that followed were not easy. Silas's leg took months to heal, and he was confined to the house, dependent on Margaret for everything. He did not like being dependent. He had spent his whole life being strong, being independent, being the man everyone relied on. But Margaret did not mind. She bathed him, fed him, read to him by the fire. She did not complain. She did not ask for thanks. She simply did what needed to be done, the same way she had always done. And Silas watched her. He watched the way she moved through the house, graceful and efficient. He watched the way she talked to the cat, the way she hummed while she cooked, the way she smiled at the sunrise. He watched her the way a man watches a miracle, with wonder and awe and a growing sense of unworthiness. He began to talk to her, not about the ranch or the deal or the feud, about himself, about his past, about the things that haunted him. He told her about his mother, the way she had died in his arms when he was 12. He told her about his father, the cold, hard man who had raised him to believe that love was weakness. He told her about the range war, the men he had lost, the things he had done that kept him awake at night. Margaret listened. She did not judge. She did not interrupt. She simply listened, her hand in his, her presence a balm on wounds that had been festering for years. And when he was done, she told him her own secrets. The loneliness of her childhood, the grief of losing her mother, the fear that she would never be loved, never be chosen, never be enough. She told him about the night before the wedding, the night she had stood in her bedroom and prayed for the strength to get through the ceremony. She told him about the moment she had seen him at the altar, cold and distant, and felt her heart sink. "But I was wrong about you," she said. "You were not cold. You were not cruel. You were scared. Just like me. And we have spent so long being scared that we forgot how to be anything else." Silas lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it. "I am not scared anymore," he said. "Not of you, not of this, not of the future. Because I have you, and you have me, and that is enough." The betrayal came on a spring morning, when the snow had melted and the first green shoots were pushing through the soil. Margaret was in the kitchen, baking bread, when a rider came thundering up the lane. It was her father's foreman, a man named Briggs, his face pale, his horse lathered with sweat. "Mrs. Kane," he said, dismounting before the horse had even stopped. "You need to come. Your father, he is not well." Margaret left the bread and ran. Silas was in the barn, still using a crutch, his leg not fully healed. She called to him, and he limped after her, his face dark with concern. They rode together to her father's ranch, the wind whipping their faces, the miles stretching out like a sentence. They were too late. Edward Thornton was dead. Not from illness, not from an accident. He had been shot. Twice. Once in the chest, once in the head. And kneeling beside his body, her hands covered in blood, was a woman Margaret had never seen before. She was young, pretty, with dark hair and wide blue eyes, and she was sobbing. "Who are you?" Margaret demanded, her voice sharp. The woman looked up. Her face was wet with tears, her hands shaking. "My name is Lily, Lily Cross. I was your father's wife." Margaret staggered. Her father's wife. Her father had remarried. He had married again, without telling her, without inviting her to the wedding, without giving her any warning. And now he was dead, and this stranger was kneeling in his blood, and nothing made sense. Silas caught her arm, steadying her. His face was grim, his eyes fixed on the body. "Who did this?" he asked. Lily shook her head. "I do not know. I came home and found him like this. The door was open. The house was ransacked. Whoever did it was looking for something." Margaret looked around the room. The desk was overturned, the drawers pulled out, the papers scattered across the floor. Her father's strongbox was open, empty. And then she saw it. A piece of paper, half hidden under the rug. She bent down and picked it up. It was a letter, written in her father's handwriting, addressed to her. "My dearest Margaret," it began, "if you are reading this, I am dead, and I need you to know the truth. The deal I made with Silas Kane was not what it seemed. I did not marry you to him to end the feud. I married you to him to protect you from a far greater danger. There is a man who has been hunting our family for years. His name is Jacob Cross. He is Lily's brother, and he is the one who killed your mother." The world tilted. Margaret's knees buckled, and Silas caught her, lowering her gently to the floor. He took the letter from her shaking hands and read it aloud, his voice low and steady. Jacob Cross believed that my father stole land from his family. It was a lie, but he has spent 20 years trying to prove it. He killed your mother when she refused to give him information. He has been watching you, waiting for the right moment to strike. I knew that the only way to keep you safe was to marry you to a man strong enough to protect you. Silas Kane is that man. He does not know the truth. I could not tell him. But you must tell him now. And together, you must stop Jacob Cross before he destroys everything. Margaret looked up at Silas. His face was pale, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with a fury she had never seen before. Your father used me, he said quietly. He used our marriage. He used the feud. He used the deal. He lied to me, Margaret. He lied to everyone. Margaret nodded. The tears were streaming down her face, but she did not wipe them away. He lied to protect me. He was afraid. Just like us. Silas looked at the body of Edward Thornton, the man who had manipulated him, deceived him, married him to a daughter he had not wanted. And then he looked at Margaret, at the woman who had saved his life, who had loved him despite everything, who had shown him that trust was not weakness but strength. Your father was wrong to lie, he said. But he was not wrong about one thing. I will protect you, Margaret, with my life, with everything I have. Jacob Cross will not touch you. I swear it. The days that followed were a blur of fear and confusion. Lily Cross, the stranger who had become Margaret's stepmother in secret, told them everything she knew. Her brother Jacob was a monster, a man consumed by a grievance that had festered into madness. He had killed before. He would kill again. And he was coming for Margaret. Silas did not wait. He sent word to the sheriff, gathered his ranch hands, and prepared the house for an attack. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He stood guard at the window, his rifle in his hands, his eyes scanning the darkness. And Margaret stood with him, her hand on his arm, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm. On the third night, Jacob Cross came. He came alone, a dark figure on a dark horse, riding out of the shadows like a ghost from a nightmare. He dismounted in the yard and called out Silas's name, his voice cold and calm. I do not want you, Kane, he shouted. I want the girl. Give her to me and I will go. Refuse and I will burn this house to the ground with everyone inside. Silas looked at Margaret. His eyes were dark, fierce, full of a love he had never expected to feel. Stay inside, he said. No matter what you hear, do not come out. Margaret grabbed his arm. Silas, no! He will kill you! Let him try, Silas said, and he walked out the door. Margaret ran to the window. She watched as Silas walked into the yard, his rifle in his hands, his legs still limping slightly from the injury. Jacob Cross laughed when he saw the limp. You are crippled, Kane. You cannot fight me. I do not need to fight you, Silas said. I need to stop you, and I will. One way or another. Jacob drew a pistol. Silas raised his rifle, and the world stopped. Margaret could not breathe. She could not move. She stood at the window, her hands pressed against the glass, her heart pounding in her chest. She saw Jacob's finger tighten on the trigger. She saw Silas's jaw clench, his eyes narrow, his hands steady. And then she heard the shot. But it was not Silas who fell. It was Jacob. A single bullet, fired from the window of the bunkhouse, had struck him in the chest. He crumpled to the ground, his pistol falling from his hand, his eyes wide with surprise. One of Silas's ranch hands, a young man named Pete, stepped out of the shadows, his rifle still smoking. Could not let him hurt you, boss, Pete said, his voice shaking. Could not let him hurt her. Silas looked at Jacob Cross, lying in the dirt, his blood soaking into the ground. He looked at the house, at Margaret's face in the window, pale and frightened. And he walked back inside, into her arms, and held her so tight she thought she might break. It is over, he whispered. It is over. Margaret buried her face in his chest. She wept for her father, for her mother, for the years of fear and loneliness and grief. She wept for Silas, for the wounds he had carried, for the walls he had built. And she wept for herself, for the girl who had walked down the aisle toward a stranger, not knowing that stranger would become her home. They buried Edward Thornton in the small cemetery behind the ranch house. Lily Cross stood beside Margaret, her hand in hers, Two women who had been bound together by secrets and lies and the love of a man who had done terrible things for the best of reasons. Silas stood behind Margaret, his hand on her shoulder, his presence a shield against the wind. When the grave was filled and the preacher had said the last words, Margaret turned to Silas. "Our marriage began with a deal," she said. "A deal sealed with a handshake and a promise that had nothing to do with love. But I want to make a new deal now. A deal between you and me. No lies, no secrets, no bargains. Just two people who choose each other. Every day. For the rest of our lives." Silas took her face in his hands. He looked at her, this woman he had married for land, this woman who had saved his life and stolen his heart. And he smiled. A real smile. The first real smile she had ever seen on his face. "I accept," he said. "No deal, no bargain, just us." He kissed her then, there in the cemetery, with the wind blowing and the mountains watching. And Margaret kissed him back, her arms around his neck, her heart full to bursting. She had walked down the aisle expecting betrayal. She had stood at the altar waiting for the other shoe to drop. But the betrayal had not come from him. It had come from the past, from the shadows, from a man who had been hunting her family for years. And in the end, the man who had married her for land had saved her. Not because of the deal, not because of the bargain, but because of love. The kind of love that grows in silence, in patience, in the quiet moments between fear and hope. The kind of love that is chosen, not given. The kind of love that saves. If you are watching this tonight and you feel like your marriage is just a deal, just a bargain, just a way to survive, I want you to hear me. Love can grow in the coldest soil. Love can bloom in the darkest winter. Love can find you when you least expect it, in the arms of a stranger, in the silence of a kitchen, in the desperate hours of a long, dark night. Do not give up. Do not stop hoping. The person you married for convenience may become the person you cannot live without. The deal that sealed your marriage may become the foundation of something beautiful, and the betrayal you fear may never come. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from tonight. Have you ever married for the wrong reasons and found the right love? Have you ever been betrayed and found healing in unexpected places? I read every comment, every story, every heart that reaches out in the darkness. If you want more stories of deals that become love, of bargains that become blessings, of hearts that heal against all odds, please subscribe. There are more altars to stand before, more vows to make, and I would be honored to walk with you through every one.